You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I do appreciate it. While you're here, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck, and of course with the Atlanta Braves, who had a huge victory over the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight. This is the first series of the year between these two teams, and the Dodgers were looking to sweep the Braves after 2 wins to start out this series, but the Braves get it started early. Olsen homered in the 4th, Ozuna homered in the 5th, and from there the Braves were able to walk this one off after the Dodgers tied it up 3-3, courtesy of an Ozzie Albies sac fly to make it 4-3 for the Braves. This is a big win. This puts the Braves, or keeps the Braves rather, 5.5 games up on the Mets in the division. And, you know, that's one of the biggest things, because as we go through this stretch without Max Fried, without Kyle Wright, one of the biggest questions is the starting pitching. And Bryce Elder has made himself not a question mark. And I think that's something we got to take away from today. Not only today, but also many of his other appearances throughout the year. Bryce Elder has been a pleasant surprise in a lot of ways. This wasn't a guy that we necessarily picked out to be in the starting rotation at the beginning of the year in spring training. I mean, Dylan Dodd was lined up ahead of Bryce Elder, and Bryce Elder has been one of the most consistent pitchers, not only for the Braves, but in all of the National League, and I would even argue for a lot of Major League Baseball. This has been a guy who the Braves could count on when times were tough. This is a guy that the Braves could count on to give them quality starts, and he's been a guy all year long that they've been able to turn to in games like this. And you talk about, you know, competition. There's no bigger competition for Atlanta than the Los Angeles Dodgers. They've been arguably the biggest foe in the past few years, at least when it comes to the postseason. This is a good team. This is not a team that, you know, is expected to be shut down offensively, and that's not exactly what happened today. The Dodgers did get 12 hits on the game, but you're talking about Bryce Elder coming in, a young guy coming in and making this game competitive for the Braves and keeping them in it. And speaking of keeping them in it, we got to talk about the offense, but before we do that, the bullpen was able to come in. Nick Anderson struggled, gave up a couple runs there, but all in all, the Braves were able to win this one. So on the offensive side, obviously the long ball was the story on the day. Olsen's homer, 456 feet over the chop house, was a nice visual, if nothing else. Ozuna's homer was a good thing to see. And, you know, I've spoke a lot this year about Marcell Ozuna, and I think rightfully so. You know, he's had plenty to talk about, good and bad. Luckily, right now, we're in a stretch where we can talk good about Marcell Ozuna. His batting average has taken a steep incline. His home runs have taken a steep incline. His performance overall at the plate has taken a steep incline. And I know a lot of people are going to want to talk about the incident the other night with Will Smith behind the plate with the backswing hitting the catcher. That tends to be a common occurrence with catchers in general for Marcell Ozuna. I didn't think it was that serious, but I can understand why a lot of you guys, you know, raised the eyebrow a little bit at that. It happened again tonight, although you could blame Will Smith a little more tonight because he stood up in response to the pitch. But no, I thought his homer was a good sign. And again, his batting average is something that I think we really need to take a look at, because you're talking about a guy who is, I think, 068 at one time this year. He's hitting 211. 211 doesn't sound like much, but going from 068 to 211 in this amount of time says a lot about what Ozuna has done lately. What have you done for me lately? And right now, Ozuna's doing nothing but good things at the plate, and you have to look at that. The other guy I wanted to make mention offensively, not a guy that necessarily contributed in the runs, but was a guy that looks like he turned a corner, and that was Michael Harris, who I actually spoke to this past weekend. That interview's coming out on the channel later this week, so be prepared for that. But no, we spoke with Michael Harris, and amidst that time, he was really struggling. I think he got up to 0 for 23, 0 for his last 23 before getting a hit tonight. But the important news is he got a hit tonight, and he got a hit to straight to left center, exactly where Chipper Jones was instructing him to do that. So that was a good thing to see. Hopefully he'll get it flipped over. He's not the first Brave to struggle this year, won't be the last. Of course, there was a time where Olsen was struggling. There was a time where Riley was struggling. Riley was the guy that really got everything shaking in the ninth inning. He got on base. Not only did he get on base, he got a double to start the inning out. That always tends to lead to runs. So good on Riley for doing that. But, you know, it opens the floodgates, and that's how this offense has always done. When someone's not hitting, other people are. And I think that's what you got to look at. So whenever Michael Harris isn't struggling or is struggling, focus on what the other guys are doing, because Ozuna has been on fire these past few days, and that's always a good thing to see. I mean, he's been on fire for a few weeks now. But any win over the Dodgers is a good one. Any win at all is a good one, especially when you're down in starting pitching. You hated to see Spencer Strider get rocked like he did yesterday, but that's a rare occurrence. I don't think it's anything to necessarily be concerned about. I think it's more so just something that obviously is going to catch up to him. Spencer Strider's not going to have a great appearance every time out. It's just not how the game works. But it was refreshing to see Bryce Elder be able to come in and perform like he did tonight. So let's talk about what we need to talk about, and that is, of course, what happens from here. What happens tomorrow? Well, the Braves do play the Phillies tomorrow night. That is at 7:20. Braves will host it. If you're going to be at the ballpark, good on you for being there. This is a 4-game set with the Philadelphia Phillies, and this is a chance for the Braves to really gain some ground in the National League East. They already have 5.5 games, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do. The Phillies are going to be throwing out Aaron Nola in Game 1. They're going to be throwing out Taijuan Walker in Game 2, who the Braves crushed, by the way, just so you know. Zach Wheeler will be in Game 3, and they have a TBD for Game 4. On the contrary, we have a TBD for tomorrow, although it is likely going to be Dodd. I think that is official as of right now, but if it's not, it might as well be. Dylan Dodd will get the start tomorrow. I have no doubt about that. He will be taking on Aaron Nola. Jared Schuster will get the start in Game 2. He will, of course, be taking on Taijuan Walker. Charlie Morton will take the mound in Game 3. That is on Saturday, and that will be against Zach Wheeler, so that'll be a good matchup with some veterans on the mound. And Spencer Strider will get on the mound for Game 4. That will be Sunday, and we do not know yet who his opponent will be. But we will see, of course, what happens from there. But yeah, so they got a good series ahead. Obviously, any series with the Phillies is a good one. It's a National League East series. And the Phillies at one time, I believe, were in second place not that long ago. They're not far out of it. They're 7 games back. The Mets are 5.5 games back. So you're talking about the Phillies, who are 1.5 games back from being in second place. That may not sound like much, but it's always good to get wins over someone in your division. And the Mets, you know, it's always what you really want to look at is where the Braves are in relation to the Mets, because 5.5 games may sound like a lot, but being down Max Fried and being down Kyle Wright at the same time for multiple months, 5.5 games isn't that much. Now, luckily, the Braves have been able to coast on that path for the time being, and of course, we hope that will be the case going forward. Now, before we go any further, I do want to remind you guys, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck, and of course, with your Atlanta Braves. Also, do me a favor and follow me on social media. The tag is down below, and also check out the On Deck shop. That QR code is on the left or on the right of your screen, I apologize, and the link is down below. Also, do want to shout out our friends at FOCO. Now, FOCO is a company that does many things, but they have Braves gear, and they wanted me to share it with you. They have, oh, sorry about that. That's not the graphic we need. Where in the world? Okay, sorry about that, guys. I will get the right graphic on at some point. They do have some spring essentials. The link is down below, but FOCO has been supporting this channel all year long, so please make sure to go give them a shout out and check out the link down below. Again, that's our friends at FOCO. So let's again talk about what you guys want to talk about. Thank you guys. I see a lot of you already being active in the chat. We're going to go as long as you guys carry us tonight. So any concerns you have with the Braves, put them in the chat. Remember, Super Chats do get priority, so keep that in mind. And we will, of course, answer as many questions as we can, but Super Chats do get priority. All right, Landon says, Dylan Dodd starting tomorrow. What are your thoughts on that? So Dylan Dodd is a guy who I've thought, I'll be honest with you, I thought should have been starting for a while now. I'm not a fan of the bullpen games, never have been, because you have a lot of factors there that could go your way, but you also have a lot of factors that potentially won't go your way, and they haven't been successful for the Braves all in all. I don't even know if they've won a single bullpen game this year because you're counting on so many different arms to be ready, and it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the team as a whole because, again, they're not successful. You don't pick up the win, and it's also you're really damaging your pen. Now, in times like these, when you're down starting pitching, you may have to throw one or two of those out there occasionally. But when you have a guy like Dylan Dodd in the minors, when you have a Jared Schuster, when you have even, I'll say it, Mike Soroka, I just don't see a point in throwing Michael Tonkin out there for multiple innings over and over again if you have those guys down there and seemingly ready to go. Now, Schuster's been a part of the rotation for a while now, but when you have a Dylan Dodd down there who had a great spring training, has had a couple of starts at the big league level, never really amounted to much, but when you have a guy like that who has the potential, why not let him either, sink or swim? That's my take on it. And I think that's what we're going to see tomorrow. I would be surprised if they throw a bullpen game. So in terms of Dylan Dodd starting tomorrow, my thoughts on it, it's better than a bullpen game. And honestly, there's no risk involved because if you lose the game, you lose the game. But I'd rather give this guy a shot to see what he has and if he's going to be able to benefit the rotation later on in the year, possibly, maybe even be a weapon, come postseason. So that's my take on that. On the contrary, there's a large crowd of Braves fans that cannot wait to see Michael Soroka. Now, I'll be honest with you, I am one of those people. I would love to see Michael Soroka on the mound. The good news for that crowd is that seems to be happening very soon. It seems to be on its way. Snicker commented today and said that the biggest thing that Snicker needed to see was Soroka hit 100 pitches, and that has happened. His last start was a pretty good one. He very well may be getting close to coming back, but make no mistake, he will not be on the mound tomorrow. That is not where the Braves are headed. That is not in the plan, I don't believe, but I do believe that it is coming soon. And when the day comes, it is going to be a great day for Braves fans. It's going to be a great day for Michael Soroka. It's going to be a great day for the Braves as a whole because this is a guy who we've waited to see for a very long time and a guy that deserves a shot coming back. Is that shot tomorrow? No. Is that shot soon? You bet. The Braves are going to try everything in their power to give Michael Soroka a shot on the big league mound. And you know what? I think he can very well perform there. I think he could very well be successful there. And to be honest with you, I've said since the offseason, this is something that could be a good thing because it can catch a lot of teams off guard if he's going to be ready come October. And I think it's just something to keep in mind there. Vision says Ozuna has hit a lot of catchers. It's his swing. Yeah, Ozuna has a very violent swing. I knew a lot of people were going to talk about the Will Smith, Marcell Ozuna dispute over him hitting Will Smith in the head. Now, here's the thing. I completely understand Will Smith's point of view because if it's truly the fifth time he's done it, it probably gets old. But I also understand Ozuna, who, frankly, is having the most success he's had in 2 years right now, probably not wanting to change his swing. It's working, whatever he's doing, and to go up there and have to think about, I don't want to hit this catcher, catch up to this 100-mile-an-hour fastball, it's probably not something he really wants to consider while at the plate, especially considering he's just now finding that success. But ultimately, I think that, the whole issue is kind of mild. I think, obviously you saw, if you can read lips, you saw Ozuna apologize. I don't think it's something that's going to carry on. When Ozuna homered today, he did hit Smith on the backswing, but Smith also kind of stood up into it. It was one motion. They kind of collided. No argument there. You kind of keep your eye open in moments like that for are they going to hit Ozuna on the next at bat? Didn't happen. So I think it's probably safe to say it's over, you hope. But it's going to always be in the back of our heads, kind of like Will Smith, the other Will Smith, and Juan Soto. It's just something to kind of keep an eye on. But we'll see. Laugh says our lack of defense is kind of alarming recently. Only 5 hits tonight. Or I'm sorry, our lack of offense is kind of alarming recently. Only 5 hits tonight. Yeah, the Dodgers actually out hit us 12-5, but on the scoreboard it says 4-3. You can call it lack of offense. It's lack of consistency at the plate, sure. Obviously, 5 hits through 9 innings isn't exactly what you want, but when your hits are Olsen homer, Ozuna homer, which is a 2-run shot, and a couple of hits in between, and one of them is also Michael Harris, I think you'll take it. And again, a win against the Dodgers we'll take any day of the week. I don't care if it's a 1-hit game, we'll take it. But yeah, I can understand that. It's been a little bit throughout the entire lineup, but again, we're about to get into some easier competition, you hope, with the Phillies. Although Aaron Nola is never an easy one to do. We'll see what happens, but the offense will figure itself out. You don't have to worry about this offense long term. There's going to be times where it slumps. There's going to be time where the team slumps. It is a marathon. They're not going to be a 152 win team. It's just not going to happen like that. But it is. I can understand the concern, but I also think it's going to solve itself. Let's see. Is there a conflict right now with who catches? Because Murphy has been great, but we are trying to bring in d'Arnaud, and I'm wondering if that's causing our offensive woes. I don't believe so. I don't think there's a conflict because it was kind of stated out front that Sean Murphy was going to do most of the catching. What I think is happening, if I'm honest with you, is when that decision was made, when the decision to bring Sean Murphy in was made, the Braves may or may not have considered the idea that Ozuna would be hitting like he's hitting. Because let's be honest, how many of us expected this? Not I. And I assume not most of you. So, and that's because we're educated baseball fans. Well, the Braves are educated too. They didn't see Ozuna breaking out like this. And right now, they're kind of riding that wave. But if Ozuna cools off back to where he was, then I think you see d'Arnaud DH more. I think right now they're trying to give d'Arnaud regular at-bats to keep him fresh. And to be honest with you, keep Murphy fresh. Because, yeah, you can say he's going to take the majority of the catching duties, but day in, day out, that's not exactly, great on your knees. It's not exactly great on your legs. And never a bad thing to give a guy a day off. Is it causing the offensive woes? I'm going to say no because d'Arnaud is a pretty good bat. He's also not a bad catcher. He's been pretty good for us these past few years. Could it be causing offensive woes for Murphy? I mean, you can say that, but I don't think that's the case. I think they're trying to find that balance, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, personally. Joe Reese says, with Mike Soroka start yesterday, it's time to call him up. I can agree with that. I saw somebody wrote down there, it was you. Soroka pitched yesterday, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, and 97 pitches thrown. Well, that means he's not going to pitch tomorrow because he threw 97 pitches yesterday, but he is certainly on his way, and he is certainly getting close to coming back. 97 would look a little better if it was 100, but he certainly seems like he could have thrown that. I definitely think he's ready, but they may make him throw one more. Let me put it this way. If Dodd has a just meltdown tomorrow, I think you see Soroka in the next spot. I really do. I don't think they'll wait on it. I think they'll go ahead and make that decision. But we'll see. I think Soroka's getting close. They've handled this the right way, and I think they're going to continue to do it that way. I don't think waiting on Soroka is ever going to be a bad thing because, again, you never want to bring that guy back too early. You just don't. He's coming back from some serious injuries, serious surgeries, and you just don't want to risk something else happening because that could spell the end of his career. And that's something the Braves have to consider, and something Soroka has to consider as well. Vision says, I was there last night. It was a tough game. Glad we came back with a W tonight, and I'll be there tomorrow. Vision's just going to all the games. I've yet to go to one this year, but I'll get there at some point, make no mistake. Jake Hoppy says, I'm not saying we won because I wore my on-deck shirt, but I'm not saying that isn't the case. That is great. Hang on a second. I'm clipping that. You're going to be on my next on-deck, shop on-deck commercial. That's great. I appreciate that. Let me see. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate that. Yeah, just since he said it, I guess there's a reminder. If you need a lucky charm for the Braves, go shop on deck. I really do appreciate that, Jake. Honestly, I do. Vitamin says, I think I'm done with Minter. I can't stand him. Okay. I was waiting on somebody to bring this up. AJ Minter has been very inconsistent this year, to say the least. I am aware of that. I'm actually pulling up his stats as quick as I can right now. But I don't think it's fair to just disown yourself of him. Because we've seen this with plenty of relievers in the past few years. I mean, truthfully, we have. You remember when Shane Green was great and then all of a sudden he wasn't? Now, he fell off for good. But there's been plenty of guys to not do so well and then come back and be great. Will Smith, anybody? I mean, I'm just saying. It happens. Kenley Jansen, you could argue. There's been plenty to struggle and then be better as time goes on, or maybe take a couple nights off and come back and flip right back on. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. That 7.36 ERA is not the AJ Minter we were expecting this year. I saw Grant McCauley tweeted something. Let me see if I can find it. It was basically comparing the pitchers and whether or not the pitch is, rather, and just seeing kind of what the baseball savant broke down. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see. Sorry, guys. Typing with one hand is not exactly the easiest thing in the world. Let's see. It was yesterday, so it might take me a second. But anyway, it was comparing the cutter and his fastball and the decline in velocity and that kind of thing. And it's not what you would expect because I'll be honest with you. I was like Grant. I was thinking, if anything, it's going to be the cutter was the issue because that's what seems to be getting hit a lot. But in reality, it was the fastball that had a decline. So just something to keep in mind. Let's see. Okay, well, I'm going to give up on that so I can follow you. But yeah, it's worth taking a look at. At least go check out. Something's going on. We don't really know what it is, but I'm sure AJ does. And, he'll work on it. If he needs time at Gwinnett, maybe he needs time at Gwinnett. I don't know. But it's certainly been rough to watch, although I'm not that quick to say get rid of him because he's AJ Minter and he's been great for the Braves over the past couple of years. And I think with relievers, especially a lot of times, we kind of forget that a little too quickly because relievers come in and they get, they can either do what's expected, which is for them to have a clean inning and get out of it, or they can give up a couple runs and lose the game, and that kind of pressure doesn't do well with everybody, and it also, is pressure. It's not the easiest thing to come into. Starters start the game, they kind of have a different mindset, but relievers, it's all on them, and you rarely get credited for having a clean inning, having a shutout inning. For relievers to get credit, they have to be dominant. They have to be the guy. This dude has a sub-1 ERA throughout the year. They have to be that guy. So, a starter can get a lot of credit for throwing 5-6 innings scoreless or 5-6 innings 1 run. Reliever gives up that 1 run, and that's a terrible day for you, right? And I'm not saying that that's any excuse. It's not. But I don't want you to just throw out the idea that AJ Minter can be successful because, guys, I remember when AJ Minter first came up and he wasn't successful, and then he turned into the guy who last year had a 2 ERA, right around a 2 ERA. Yeah, 2.06 ERA, had 94 strikeouts on the year in, 70 innings. So he can be that guy. He also threw a lot more by far last year. And he's already thrown 22 innings this year, which is a lot. He's had a lot of the stress innings that when, Kyle Wright was hurt earlier in the year before this past injury, and we had to navigate throughout the bullpen. AJ Minter was the guy that we kind of turned to, and I still believe overexposed a bit in that regard because we always went to him. He was one of our few lefties, and one of the few lefties that Brian Sticker can count on. So I think he's a bit overexposed. I think he's a bit overused. There might be some arm troubles. I don't know. I think he has lost some velocity on the fastball, is what I read yesterday. Don't quote me on that, but I do believe that's what Grant McCauley had, according to Baseball Savant. And I haven't really done a deep dive on that, but it is worth taking a look at. But again, I don't think it's worth saying, hey, A.J. Minter, I'm done. Because no, we're not. A.J. Minter can be successful. If he flips it on after the All-Star break and becomes what Will Smith was in 2021, then, we're looking like fools. So just keep that in mind. It's a little too quick for me to make that decision. If he ends the year with an 8 ERA, I'll get there probably. But even then, relievers a lot of times have good years, then they have rough years, then they have better years, and then they fall back and fall back and fall back. So it's, again, worth the concern, not necessarily worth just throwing it out. That's my opinion on that. Landon says, Vaughn Grissom is hitting consistently in AAA for many games. Do you see him getting called up early or sometime later this season for injury purposes? I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I don't know if the Braves are willing to put him in any other position other than shortstop. Like, if Arcia got hurt, he's the guy they're going to. We've seen that happen already, right? You still question the defense, but he's your best option. Maybe Shoemake, but it's not the bat that's the issue. Like, you're talking about he's hitting well in AAA. He was hitting well at the big leagues. That wasn't the issue. The issue was we looked over at shortstop and realized, hey, this guy's not big league ready, at least defensively. The bat's not an issue. He could be on a lot of different teams and be in the big leagues right now. I'll put it that way. But on a competing team, on a team that, frankly, relies on defense, prides himself on defense, they're going to expect, a stellar glove. And Orlando Arcia has been much better than what Vaughn Grissom is right now. And I'm not saying that this isn't your potential future shortstop. I'm not saying he's going to be traded. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is he is not ready compared to Orlando Arcia. Orlando Arcia could very well be a stopgap. Orlando Arcia could very well be the guy that the Braves roll with for the next 3 years at the shortstop position. Because, frankly, Orlando has had a great season so far at full-time at shortstop. And I think nobody really expected that. You might have said, hey, we'll see what happens. But you didn't expect that. Most of you were probably upset that we lost Dansby Swanson, right? Rightfully so. But nobody expected Vaughn Grissom to not be the shortstop this year. He was the expected guy to take over that position. He was the guy that we all expected the Braves to hand that position to award that position to. Because we've seen the young guys get the positions over the years. Austin Riley at third, Acuna in outfield, Harris in outfield. We've seen this happen. Ozzie Albies at second a few years ago. We've seen this happen. We've seen the young guys that the Braves organization grooms get those positions. The problem is Vaughn Grissom has not spent enough time developing that skill. That's really all it is. It's not we're speaking bad of him. It's not he's not ready. He is offensively. Defensively, he's not. Offensively, I would love for him to be in the 9-hole. I would absolutely love that. But he's just not there yet. And maybe at some point he'll be there. But right now is not it. And to your point, when I said I don't know if they would call on him for injury purposes, one, I don't know if anybody would be injured. Two, if they do call on him, is it for shortstop? Is it for second base? Or is it for the outfield? Because I've hinted multiple times that I think he could very well be a left field option. And right now that might not be a popular opinion, but a couple of months ago it was when Ozuna wasn't hitting well, Rosario wasn't hitting well, and we didn't have a very good left field option, at least on paper. And right now I look at you and say, if somebody got hurt, who's playing left field? I mean, you can go Hilliard, you can go this, or you can give a young guy a shot in Vaughn Grissom. I'm just saying, shortstop just may not be his position. I'm not qualified to say that. I'm not a coach. I'm not the guy who's on the field with him every day. What I'm telling you is, if shortstop isn't going to be his position, if he's not qualified to play it, it doesn't take a genius to figure out he's not ready yet. You watch him on the field a few times, you'll know. You'll see the plays, you'll see him not make them, and it's rookie mistakes, but it's a lot of them. And on a team like the Braves, they can't really afford to have those. especially considering the lack of pitching you have right now. Any ground ball you get just about needs to be an out, at least a ground ball that's to you. You overthrow the first baseman, what are we doing here? Do you get what I'm saying? Because, again, you have young pitchers on the mound. They have to get out of innings. Double plays are important. They save pitches. And, again, Orlando Arcia isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But one thing he does is systematically defend because he does not let ground balls get by. Tonight he had the one slip up on second, but it wasn't like drastic. He still got the out at second. The ball had a funny hop. Whatever. But it's not regular. You expect him to make those plays. He did have a good play to end the threat in the 8th, if I'm not mistaken, or no, maybe the 9th, when Dodgers had runners on. So it's just something to keep in mind. We do have a super chat. Remember, super chats do get you priority, so keep that in mind. From Z Corp Alpha, it says let me rephrase. Team needs to just relax and analyze our position at the All-Star break. It's a long season. Enjoy the show. I don't deny that. We still are going to sit here and talk about it, though. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And I tell people every year, don't panic, right? If there ever was a time to panic, I'd say it would have been about 2 weeks ago when we found out not only is Max Fried out, but Kyle Wright is out as well until possibly after the All-Star break. The good news is, we haven't seen a major decline. Not really. The Braves are, 30-18 now? They still have a well over 500. And they're 5.5 games up in the division. So you look at that and you say, well, I guess, we really can handle this. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. But ultimately, you're right. It's not time to panic. It's time to analyze what we have. And I think tomorrow we're going to get a chance to do that. Excuse me. With Dylan Dodd on the mound, we're going to get a chance to see what he could be throughout the future of this year, throughout maybe the future of his career. Is he a guy that's meant to be in the starting rotation for the Braves? Is he a guy that we can trade once everybody's healthy? Is he a guy that, the Braves can turn to when they need depth in situations like this? It's good to know that kind of thing. And having a 5.5 game cushion in the division is always a good thing to have in times like this because you can experiment a bit. Dylan Dodd is still an experiment. As much as we do know about him, he's still an experiment. Hey guys, do want to remind you one more time, please do like the video. It helps me get this channel out there, helps me let this grow as well. So please do like this video. It's completely free to do and it helps me the most. Please do like the video. And of course, if you're new and you like the Braves or you like baseball or you just like to talk, please do subscribe as well. It really does help the channel and we would love for you to join the On Deck community. I really do appreciate it. Z Corp Alpha has another super chat. He says, fans should know you can invest in stock in Liberty Media Braves. Makes one feel like part of the owner. It's really cool. I haven't done that yet, but I just might. So, again, Z Corp Alpha wants you to know that you can invest in the Liberty Braves or Liberty Media Braves. So you can do that. So go invest stock in Liberty Media Braves and invest some stock here at On Deck like Z Corp Alpha did tonight. Really do appreciate that. I really do appreciate the super chats. That helps keep this channel, helps keep the lights on. I'll just put it that way. So really do appreciate that, Z Corp. And thank you for watching. Thank all of you for tuning in, by the way. Do want to remind you to go check out our friends at FOCO. The link is down below. Please go check them out, guys. They have a whole spring collection. Guys, they have bobbleheads. They have all kinds of stuff, shirts, shorts, jackets, hats, whatever. But the bobbleheads are my favorite. I'm not going to lie to you. This is from spring training. They did give me an Acuna bobblehead. That's actually in my living room. It's a big-headed Acuna bobblehead. It's a really cool bobblehead, but they have a whole collection, guys. So go check it out. The link is down below. And, of course, the link to the On Deck shop is down below as well. Again, thank you to Z Corp Alpha for the super chats. Remember, super chats do get you priority in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to go down the list in order as best we can. I really do appreciate all of you tuning in. Let's see. Jake Hobby says, if someone is injured, probably Shoemake only played one game. Yeah, I mean, he's got the better glove, and the person you're talking about, if injured, would be, no doubt, Orlando Arcia. And, you know, we saw him get injured earlier, but the thing about Orlando Arcia goes out and plays every day. You don't see him, I mean, unless he gets hurt, you don't see him out of the lineup. You know, you just don't. You don't see him not on the field. He is consistent defensively. He is consistent offensively. And again, he plays every day. So unless he's hurt, you're not going to see that. Now, if he does get hurt, I think Shoemake or Vaughn Grissom will be the option. Arguably Shoemake first, depending on the situation. If it's the postseason, I'll be honest with you. I think you see Shoemake there. If it's the regular season, you could see Grissom. But if it's the postseason, I think you see Shoemake because the glove is better, and it's not like the Braves on any given day need help offensively. They have plenty of guys that can do that, but they don't have plenty of guys that can play the shortstop position. They have three, and Shoemake's got the better glove. So that's the way I feel about that. Some people may disagree. I understand that. But personally, I believe Shoemake would get the call if the postseason started today and Orlando Arcia was hurt. But there's a long ways to go. There's a trade deadline to get through. There's all kinds of stuff that the Braves are going to have to figure out before the end of the year, and of course, we'll see what they do. Eric says, bring up Soroka against the A's, maybe Monday. Well, let's take a look at that. That would be Bryce Elder's spot. According to where we're at right now, that would line up with Bryce Elder's start. You would potentially have to shift around a little bit, maybe you could give Bryce Elder an extra day off if you wanted to. If you did that, I wouldn't be mad at it. They may want to give him one more start, but it looks like Soroka's going to be ready no matter what. Z Corp Alpha with another super chat. Sorry, guys, he gets priority. I can't do anything about it. I really do appreciate it, though. He says, this is the greatest channel for Braves information. No, thank you. I appreciate that. I do my best here. I try to give you the most laid back, the most straight up answers I can give you to your questions. I don't try to oversaturate. I don't try to get you clickbait or anything like that. I try my best not to anyway. But I try to give you just the most straight up answers you can ask for. So I really do appreciate it. This channel has been growing for some years now. We've been here a while, and guys, it just keeps getting better. I love every minute of it. I love talking Braves with you. I wish I could be here more often, if I'm honest with you. So Z Corp, thank you for all the super chats tonight. Really do appreciate it. And like he said, this is one of the greatest channels out there for Braves information. So please show some love. On the Go with CeeLo is tuning in. He says, what's up, Tyler? Go Braves. On the Go with CeeLo is another Braves channel. He does a lot of Braves watch-alongs through most games. He was live tonight, I believe. Couldn't tune in, but always love seeing On the Go with CeeLo. Go check out his channel. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. He does a lot of watch-alongs, and he's not a bad guy for Braves information himself. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see. Chris Kaysen tunes in tonight. He says a great W for the Braves. Congrats, Braves and Braves country. Daniel Barry Sports Highlights still won the series. We got a Dodgers fan here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I mean, look, you won the series. I'll give you that. But it's going to be a long season. I respect the Dodgers. I really do. I think they're a great organization. They play the game the right way. Although we'll see in the postseason. That's the way I feel about it. We got a long ways to go. Jeff Barry says, I don't mind letting Grissom stay in AAA for now to let him prepare for shortstop in the future or be a valuable trade piece. That's something that a lot of people aren't considering enough. And a lot of people won't like me saying this. Vaughn Grissom could very well find himself being a trade piece because he does have value. And he's one of the few pieces that does have value. And you may be wondering, well, Tyler, if we trade Vaughn Grissom, what would we trade him for? I have one answer for you. Pitching. That's it. Don't need a position player. Don't need a bench player. Right now, the Braves need pitching. Whether it be in the bullpen, whether it be as a starter, they need pitching. You have Max Fried and Kyle Wright who are hurt. You have a bullpen that's shaky, and that's just the way it is. So, yeah, if Vaughn Grissom's going to get me anything, I'm going to fight for it to be pitching. Will he get traded? I don't know. But if he did, that's what it's going to be for. And it may not be Vaughn Grissom. It may be Braden Shoemake. It may be whatever. But he reminds me a lot of William Contreras. I mean, a good bat, didn't really have it behind the plate, right? Well, not like Murphy. And, of course, we saw how that ended up. You had Contreras traded in a three-way trade, and you eventually got Sean Murphy. But that's who it reminds me of. And I just see there being an improvement. Could it get you a shortstop? Maybe, but I don't think that's what the Braves are going to do, especially considering Orlando Arcia has been as good as he's been for, frankly, as cheap as he is. And also, the Braves had an opportunity to sign a big-name shortstop. They didn't do it. And Dansby Swanson, they had an opportunity to sign a multitude of big-name shortstops. They did not do it. They elected to go with what they had. They thought Grissom would be the guy. He hasn't turned out to be the guy, but Orlando Arcia has shown that he's up for the challenge. So I think he could be a valuable trade piece. I do. And I think that, it's going to be for pitching. If they're going to trade for anything at the deadline, it's going to be for pitching. And I don't think it's going to be starter. I think it's going to be reliever because you can never have enough relief pitching. And the Braves have shown this year they don't have enough. I mean, they don't. You have guys who you could turn to. I think Nick Anderson's been pretty good. I know tonight he gave up 2 runs, but he overall has been pretty good. Michael Tonkin has been a guy that's been a nice surprise. But you have guys that haven't had the years that we're accustomed to having, and one of them is A.J. Minter. Raisel Iglesias was hurt for a time there, and he hasn't been exactly dominant in the closer role. Joe Jimenez has not been what the Braves hoped he would be. Kirby Yates has not turned into what they hoped he would turn into by now. There's a lot of question marks around that bullpen, and if you're going to trade for anything, I believe it's going to be for bullpen help. So we'll see what happens, but that's my take on it. Am I saying right now that Vaughn Grissom's going to be traded? No. But he could be. And it's setting up that if something doesn't happen to change the trajectory, he very well could be. It wouldn't surprise me at all come closer to the trade deadline that we see Vaughn Grissom take a trip somewhere else and in exchange for a bullpen piece. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm just saying if it does happen, we're going to clip that and we're going to air it later. That's the way I feel about it. Let's see. Chris Kaysen says Bryce Elder low-key becoming number 2 in our rotation. I wouldn't go that far. He's got a long time to go before we even go there because, one, Max Fried's your number 1 right now. Has Bryce Elder been good? No doubt about it. He's been absolutely great. But I don't view him as that because if Fried's your number 1, right, your number 2 is Strider. Strider had a rough outing, but he's been the guy. He's leading the league in strikeouts. And that's not everything, but let's be real. The guy's coming off of what would have been a Rookie of the year for him if a guy named Michael Harris didn't exist. Number 3, I'm still going Kyle Wright when healthy. Number 4, I'm still going with the veteran. I'm still going with Uncle Chuck, Charlie. And Bryce Elder kind of follows suit. But what Bryce Elder does give you is depth. And, we can talk about Dodd, we can talk about Schuster, but Bryce Elder's been the guy that the Braves can count on when needed the most. And I thought Bryce Elder, at the beginning of the year, I thought Bryce Elder was going to be the guy that the Braves were going to have to turn to. But little did I know that it was going to be, he was going to be in the rotation and be a regular in the rotation. So I think right now that's where I'm at. I put him at number 5 when everybody's healthy. And who knows? I mean, Soroka's still out there. We don't know what he's going to be. Do I think he's going to be back to form? It's tough to say, right? It's really tough to say. So in terms of ranking who's my number 1, who's my number 2, first I have to answer that. I have to ask the question, is everybody healthy? Because if everybody's healthy, Bryce Elder is not my number 2. He's on my rotation right now, but he's not my number 2. That's the way I feel about it. Let's see. Elijah Smith. Are you worried about this offense like I am? If you look up and down the lineup, they look like they are fine, but it seems like the runners and scoring position issues are really putting us in a vulnerable position. Here's the thing. I hear you. I completely understand what you're saying. But I want to remind you that over the past few years, runners in scoring position not scoring has been a common trend with this team. It was a common trend in 2020. It was a trend in 2021. It was a trend in 2022. And it will be a trend in 2023. It's just not the way the game is played anymore. And this offense, as great as it is, Acuna, Olsen, Ozzie, Rosario, Ozuna now, Riley, I mean, all these guys, as good as they are, it's just not going to work that way anymore. The game is played different. Olsen had 2 strikes against him tonight, and he hits a freaking moonshot. That's the way the game is played. And it's not just with the Braves. It's with multiple teams. It's with everybody. So, I think it's more so how the lineup is constructed. They don't go out and get a lot of contact guys. The one contact guy they have is Rosario, and Rosario is still a power guy. So the runners in scoring position, yes, it's a little concerning, but in regular season games, I'm not worried about it. And I'm going to tell you why I'm not worried about it. Because in 9th innings, they clutch up. And you might be saying, Tyler, what are you talking about? Well, tonight, for example, Austin Riley leads off the 9th inning. He gets a double, right? Darno moves him over. They get him home. Do I wish they would do that in the 4th inning? Yeah. Do I wish they would do that in the 2nd inning? Yeah. But they're also a team who lately has been scoring early, which is something that they're not really known for. Most years previous, it's like, man, I wish they would score earlier and not, do all this stuff at the end of the game. 2019 is a perfect example of that. They'd have all these late inning comebacks, and which was great. But the concern was, man, I wish they score early. Now it's like, man, I wish they give us some late inning comebacks, because they've been scoring early and not being able to score consistently during the game. So it's all about, the fact is, do they score runs? The answer to that question is yes. And if you don't believe me, I'm just going to go down how many runs they've scored in the past few days. 4 today, 1 yesterday. Let's forgive that one. 6 the day before. They lost 8-6. That's on the pitching. I'm sorry. If you score 6 runs, you should win that game. The day before, they win 3-2. They lose the day before 3-7. 6, 4, 12. These guys score runs. They haven't been shut out once in the past, week or two? Okay, since May 12th, they haven't been shut out. That was the last day they were shut out. So they put runs on the board. Am I saying one run's going to win you a game? Not often. Not in today's game, let's be real. But they do put runs on the board. No matter what, that is something. The biggest concern right now is, without a doubt, the pitching. I don't think there's any getting around that. I think everybody's well aware. Should you be concerned with the lineup? Sure, Elijah. I can understand it, but it's also, the lineup is going to have its ups and downs. The pitching is something that has to be consistent, and it's not right now. That's where we're at. Offensively, I'm going to quote Ron Washington. Offensively, you can slump. Pitching, not so much. Offensively, you can slump, but pitching and defense are something that cannot slump. Right now, the Braves are in a uncontrollable slump. It's not something that anybody's doing. It's that you're down 2 of your best pitchers that you assumed you'd have throughout the year. You didn't expect them to both be out. You could probably manage it with only one gone. If Max Fried was gone right now, we still had Kyle Wright at full health in a rotation that consisted of, Spencer Strider, Kyle Wright, Bryce Elder pitching like he is, and Chuck Nasty, Charlie Morton. I'd feel pretty good. And then Jared Schuster, who's been pretty darn good himself. So I think ultimately, you can look at that and say, yeah, the offense isn't doing enough. But when they score 6 runs in a game and lose 8-6, that's on the pitching, right? So there's some games, yeah, the offense doesn't do it, but when I've said before in the past to someone else, not on here, but in the past week, I was like, look, they're going to have to, the games where they actually have a starting pitcher, the games where Bryce Elder's pitching or Spencer Strider's pitching or Charlie Morton's pitching or even Jared Schuster, they almost have to win these games, because whenever that 5th day rolls around, whenever there's a bullpen game, and I'll even say, even with Dylan Dodd, all credit to the guy, there's a big question mark on the mound there. So the offense has, got to come out swinging. They have all these expectations like, hey, guys, you got to score 6 runs today. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen, right? So you can look at it and say the offense is struggling, but in reality, it's the pitching. Because if you have a guy like Max Fried on the mound, right, you need 3 runs to win that game most days. That's just the case, especially like Spencer Strider, Kyle Wright. These guys don't give up a lot of runs. Spencer Strider's outing the other day is an outlier there. But most of the time, those are outliers. They do happen, but it's rare. It's more often that the offense, doesn't put up enough runs, right? That's how you lose games, right? But Lately, it's been the pitching, and that's different for us, and it's a different battle that we're not used to having to face. But it's a battle that the Braves are going to have to deal with until the All-Star break or later. Chris Case and Braves hitting into double plays have really shortened any chances of putting up some runs in quite a bit of games this year so far. Yeah, but I'll take grounding into a double play over striking out. And I know that sounds like stupid, but the amount of strikeouts that we've seen over the past few years, I'll take them putting the ball in play because it's at least something. But, you know, a lot of people would agree with me on that. Newman says, how about them Braves? Chop on. That's a super chat. Again, super chats do get you priority, so thank you to Newman. Hello, Newman. That was good. It's been a while since I've gotten to say that. Always good to see Newman tuning in. Really do appreciate it, and thank you all for tuning in. But, yeah, you know, in terms of grounding into a double play, you don't want to see it. You want to see more of a exit velo, especially with the shift being banned. You know, you just don't necessarily want to see that. You always want to see the team be able to put the ball in play and get it through the infield or get it at least out of the infield into, you know, fly ball will take, you know, whatever the case may be. But at least they're hitting the ball. It's not just unlimited strikeouts all the time. Let's see, Elijah Smith. Last night we had multiple chances with runners in scoring position before it got out of hand, but we only scored in the first and got run off the field for the rest of the game. This, along with the defense, scared me in playoffs. I don't know what about the defense scares you. I know tonight, like Eddie Rosario missed a play, but it's not as common as like Vaughn Grissom would scare me. In terms of the not scoring with runners in scoring position, that is something to worry about. But I'm not one to be like, oh man, I'm really worried about them not hitting in the postseason. I'm pretty confident in this team in the postseason. I'm going to be honest with you, if they make it. The question is, can they win the marathon without the pitching? And to your point, you know, we only scored in the first and then we got run off the field for the rest of the game. The Dodgers had 12 hits tonight. The Braves had 5. The Braves won the game. So it's not always a, you know, who gets what. I mean, it's all about it's a game, right? Like it's not always fair either, because you would think a team that got 12 hits versus a team that got 5 hits would do more, would win the game, but it doesn't always work that way. Yeah, they scored a lot of runs in the first the other night. Four runs, I think, in the first inning. You think they got the game well in hand, and then the pitching is what fails. You can blame it on the runners in scoring position, but ultimately, if I have a 4-run lead in the first inning and I'm on the mound, I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. And the pitching is what didn't back it up. So, well, okay, let me put it this way. So they got four runs in the first inning, right? Let's say it was scoreless up until the 8th. And then the Braves put 4 runs on the board in the 8th. That's pretty much the same thing, just reversed, right? Like you could say, oh, well, they didn't score in the second, they didn't score in the third, the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, but neither did the Dodgers. So it's not always fair to me to say that, oh, well, they scored in the first, but they didn't score the rest of the game. If they score 11 runs in the first and give it up, you see what I'm saying? 4 runs should be enough for a pitcher to settle in and be able to win the ballgame. The problem is, it just wasn't. So I hate to say it that way, but that's where we're at. The pitching is at a premium right now. And, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, can't we just trade for a starting pitcher? Go look for a starting pitcher and give me an option, and I'll tell you why we can't get him. Because I guarantee you I can find a reason. There's too many teams that are still competing. There's too many teams that are still in the playoff hunts, still have playoff hopes. You know, there's just too many teams. And they're not going to give up starting pitching. And if they do, it's going to be for a ton. I mean, you're going to have to give up a lot. We do have a super chat from One Ron. He says, the defense has not been consistent, but I'm sure it's just early jitters. Elder doesn't feel comfortable unless he has runners in scoring position. LOL. Good win. Pick it up. I love that. Elder doesn't feel comfortable unless he has runners in scoring position. Yeah, I think for like the first 3 or 4 innings, he got out of 2-on, 2-out situations. Like, that was where we were. So, yeah, that's the perfect way to put that. I really do appreciate that. Really do appreciate the super chat, too. That made me laugh. Again, super chats do get priority in the chat. It's the only way I can really kind of narrow this down. And we always appreciate a super chat. It helps keep the lights on, as I say. Let's see what else we got. And we got another one from one Ron. He says defense did pick it up today. Great double play. Yeah, I think it was. Forgive me. Anyway, somebody mentioned there was 2 errors yesterday. The Braves locked in and didn't have any today. The defense was pretty clear. Austin Riley had some great plays at third. Orlando Arcia was the only play that I really kind of shook my head. I kind of took a bad path to the ball, but he got the out at second. It's not an error. It's just you could have got 2. I thought there. And, there was the one play. That was the same play where Ozzie Albies got tangled up with Chris Taylor. The throw was a little off. It just didn't quite go the Braves' way there. Anyway, they got out of it unharmed. But the only other play I saw that I was like, ooh, was Eddie Rosario in the outfield, because you would think that Eddie could get to the ball late in the game where it put Dodgers on the bases, and it just wasn't good at the time. You thought the Braves might actually lose the game, but Eddie slid. He just wasn't in reach. It really wasn't. They were playing no doubles defense. So, I mean, it was a clean defensive game, I thought. There were times where I was like, ooh, it could have been better. But, the defense will clean itself up. Having a guy like Ron Washington on the staff, I assure you, the defense will get picked up. Let's see. Chris Case and Tyler, would you rather bring Soroka back prematurely, or would you rather bring him back when he is truly pitching well? The latter. And a lot of people disagree with me on that. I got into a full-fledged argument the other day with a guy who completely disagreed with my take on Soroka. Because I told you a couple weeks ago, guys, Max Fried and Kyle Wright are hurt, but Soroka is not going to be the first guy the Braves turn to. And that really made a lot of you upset. And I if you're one of them, I apologize. But I still think I was right, because they're not going to risk all of what they have come back from with Soroka just because we don't have a couple guys. It's not going to be that way. They have too much invested in the rehabilitation of Michael Soroka. And you can disagree with that or, take what you want from it. I think they're going to wait till he's ready. I think he's almost ready. I will say that. 100 pitches is what Snitker said that he really needed to see before he felt comfortable bringing Soroka back. And he pitched 97. Is that enough? Maybe. Does he need to see 100 exactly? Does he need to see more than 100? I don't know. But he threw 6 innings, and he was successful. I don't know that the Braves feel like they need to push it, though. That's just me. I would like for Soroka to be brought back in his home ballpark. That I won't lie to you. That's kind of where my head goes. And they do have a chance within the next week, because if I'm not mistaken, they have a homestand up until Monday. So Monday they head to Oakland, homecoming for Matt Olson and Sean Murphy for that matter. The first time I think they'll be back there this year. But they do have 4 games with the Phillies. The only option they have for him to pitch against the Phillies would be tomorrow. Because everybody else is pretty much locked in, unless they wanted to give extra days for other people. And they may. I don't know. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be anytime immediate. I think it's going to be sometime soon, but not immediate. I think you're going to have probably another week, and we'll go from there. Let's see what else we got. Jeff Barry says, let Ozuna hit in the 3-hole so we can get that 3-headed dragon with Acuna, Olsen, and Ozuna. As much as I like that comment, I will tell you that I never thought I would see that comment. Because like a month ago we were talking about, I just can't talk about Ozuna anymore. This is getting so old talking about Ozuna. He's completely flipped the script on us, and I'm a fan of it. Let's see. Chris Kaysen says, I want Arcia over Grissom personally. He can hit and field exceptionally well, in my opinion. For right now, that's the case. And it may be the case that Vaughn Grissom eventually steps over that, or has more upside for the Braves to vouch for that. But personally, right now, I'm with you. I don't see there being a path this season, and if we're being real, for Grissom to take it. This skill does not develop overnight. Unless Arcia gets hurt, I don't see this happening. So that's my take on it. And a lot of people really just want Grissom. They want the young blood, and that's great. But I'm telling you, you're not going to find a better shortstop on the Braves roster right now than Orlando Arcia. It's just the fact. And I've been saving this quote. My dad has been telling me I need to say this quote about this situation. John Madden once said that if you have more than one quarterback, you don't have a quarterback, right? I think the shortstop of the Atlanta Braves is Orlando Arcia, at least for right now. You can change my mind in a couple years, maybe when Grissom develops, but right now, your shortstop is Orlando Arcia. So that's my thought on that. Chris Kaysen says Riley isn't slumping. Olsen is tied for third in homers, and Harris is slumping. I think that's in response to Hash Slinging Slasher, which is a great name, by the way. Hash Slinging Slasher says the team sucks. Riley, Olsen, Harris are all slumping, and on top of that, Strider and Morton had terrible couple starts. Okay, Strider and Morton having bad starts doesn't necessarily mean they stink. It just means they've had a rough go at it. And wouldn't you have a rough go at it if two of your buddies who are supposed to be carrying the team are both hurt? I think I would be having a rough go at it. Let's take a look at some stats, shall we? So let's start with Riley. We'll go there first. Austin Riley is hitting .255, not too bad. 7 homers, could be a little bit more, but maybe not what as he's been over the past couple seasons, but not bad. .333 on base, .413 slug, not terrible. Could be better. Not gonna lie, there could be a lot better. But We'll see. Look, he was 6th in MVP last year. The dude's a stud. He's been a Silver Slugger. He's trending up. That's the other thing you got to realize. He's trending up. Riley clutched up tonight. He had that 9th inning hit to lead off the inning. In terms of Matt Olson, this is really where I'm going to disagree with you. You can tell me Riley's been slumping, and I'll agree with that. Olson was slumping earlier this year. I would have agreed with that at the time. His average does not speak for him. .233 average, but he is leading the game. He was leading in homers till today. He is leading in strikeouts. I will give you that. The strikeouts got to improve. He does have 13 homers. I believe that's good for third in MLB, so that is something to keep in mind. Would like to cut down the strikeouts, but that is today's game. So you can look at that what it is. The slug is north of 500, so I'm going to disagree with you on the Olsen front too. What was the other one? Harris. Now, Harris he's had a rough go at it, but Harris is also in his sophomore season. He's, the big leagues are starting to figure him out. And the thing about Harris, and I'm actually glad you brought this up because I've been kind of wanting for a reason to say this. The thing about Harris is very similar to Andrew Jones, who, by the way, I spoke to this weekend. That interview is on the channel. We really appreciate you going to check it out. We actually talked about him getting his number retired later this year. And Andrew's been a big help to this channel and a big supporter of this channel. So please go check that out. Andrew Jones is on the channel right now. It's not a long interview, but it's a good one. Also, similar to Andrew Jones, Michael Harris provides much more than just a regular center field bat. He's not a center field bat. He is a center fielder. And what I mean by that is he has center field defense. He is a guy that posts up every day. And if you don't believe me, take it from one of the greatest center fielders of all time, Andrew Jones, in that interview I just mentioned. Because he's a guy that posts up every day. And when you have a center fielder like that who plays defense like that, and he can subtract runs from the other team, that doesn't necessarily get counted for in a lot of people's minds. The at-bats may not be there. The average may not be there. The home runs may not be there. But the defense is and always will be. It doesn't slump for Harris. The speed is there. Even injured, he's a better defender than a lot of others. And, look, I'm just telling you, I think that guy's going to have a great career in an Atlanta Braves uniform. And talking to him this week, you talk about a guy that's determined. He is. And I'll stand by it. So you can tell me that the team stinks and this and that. I don't believe it. So that's my take on that. Thank you for tuning in to Hash Slinging Slasher. If you're a SpongeBob fan, you get that reference. Let's see. Jeff Barry says Harris probably still feeling sketchy from the injuries. Yeah, that's the other thing. I vaguely mentioned that, but everybody's been so hyped about Acuna this year. Have you noticed that? Everybody's been so, hey, have you seen Acuna? He's performing great. Hey, have you seen what he's doing? He's doing great. And he is. He's doing phenomenally well. But these are the same exact people that last year, Acuna's just not as advertised. He's just not who he's supposed to be. No! He's been battling injuries. This is a guy who's finally healthy. He's MVP level Acuna because he's healthy. A lot of people aren't going to acknowledge that. They're not going to say, last year was this because he got that torn ACL a couple of years ago. No, he just wasn't as good last year. That's not what you need to look at. He was still recovering. He probably, arguably, could have waited a couple of months and been healthy last year. Should he have? Maybe. But he didn't. And that's it. That is what it is. He's 100% healthy now. He's confident in what he can do. And if you don't believe me, watch him play the outfield. Watch how he runs around. He wasn't doing that last year. He wasn't stealing this many bases last year. He just wasn't. I think he's back to where he needs to be. And that same logic can be used for Harris. Because if you look at what Acuna has turned into, Harris, I'm not saying he's going to take all year, but there's going to be this period of unsuredness at the plate, on the field, whatever the case may be, with his knee. But once he overhops that, once he gets through the slump, he'll be fine. And the guy he's working with, I hear, is a pretty good hitting coach. If you may know him, his name's Chipper Jones. He may know a thing or two. So I think he's going to be okay. But that's my take on it. Let's see. Derek Smith says, make sure to drop a like, and I really would appreciate it. This helps get the channel out there, so please do drop a like on the channel, and of course, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for that, Derek. Let's see. No, thank you, Mean. Thank you. Joe Reese says, I would like to see Soroka called up when the Mets come to Atlanta. I think that's what you're saying. The ovation he will get will be off the charts. I think you said Mets there. Yeah, the ovation he gets no matter what, I think will be off the charts. I think baseball fans, even if he came back against the A's, I think baseball fans would treat him well. I really do. Although the stadium in the Oakland's going to be empty, so y'all get prepared for that. Dougie says, I don't know if you've touched on this. Should we be worried about Money Mike? He looks completely lost at the plate. Well, I did just touch on that, so I hope you got it. On the go with CeeLo. For the Dodgers to come to Atlanta, these pitchers did a great job. Yeah, I mean, these are two teams that can compete with anybody. They're two teams that are going to be in the postseason more than likely. I think that's ultimately where we're at. I mean, yeah, we lost the series, but I hate to chalk it up to this, but it's the Dodgers. You're going to lose series. They're going to lose series to us. It's going to happen. It's not something that I'm overly upset about. William Carr. These next two questions kind of go together, so I'm going to answer them together. William Carr, this is the worst bullpen I've seen the Braves had in the last decade. This isn't a championship team. Courtney Conaway, on the contrary, asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about the bullpen? So I kind of been touching on this sporadically throughout the stream, but I'll be glad to do it again. William Carr, I'm just going to acknowledge you first. This is not the worst bullpen I've ever seen in the past decades. Because let's think, what was a decade ago? 2013, 2014? Keep in mind, that was about the time the Braves started the rebuild right after that. Now, you could say this is the worst bullpen in the past 5 years. Maybe you may have something there. But I'm not going to say it's the worst of the past decade. I've seen worse. Courtney Conaway, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about the bullpen? It's my most worrisome thing, I think, with the team right now. But it could easily be changed. I mean, they could do a lot of things to make me more confident in it. AJ Minter, for one, could be locked down like he used to be. Joe Jimenez could turn it around. Raisel Iglesias could be dominant again, that kind of thing. But I don't necessarily... How do I put this? I don't necessarily think it's something that I'm at a 10 on. I'm worried about it like a 7. And it's not even like I'm super worried. I'm more like, ugh, what's this going to turn into? It's like I'm not confident in it. I'm not like, oh gosh, we got to fix this. It's like, ooh, we could fix this. That's kind of where I'm at. And that's not a great answer. And I know I'm not really giving you anything super logical. It's more so just, it's not something I'm very... if I'm Alex Anthopoulos, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of something I'm going to address at the trade deadline. That's me, though. What's going on, Matthew? William Metcalf says, when is the Bryce Elder extension coming? Probably, maybe next year. Maybe. I mean, we'll see how this year goes. He's finally, this is the first time we've seen him consistent. He's got to go a little longer than this, because if you don't remember, Huascar Ynoa did what he's doing now a couple years ago, and when was the last time we heard from Waskari Noah? So I just want to make that put that out there. Trip Block tunes in. What's going on, Trip? He says, when do you think Soroka comes up? Trip, I'm going to be honest with you. I've answered this question a bunch tonight, but I'll be glad to answer it for you since you paid. I don't think immediately. He's not pitching tomorrow because he pitched yesterday. He threw 97 pitches yesterday. He's not pitching tomorrow. They have not named a starter yet, I don't believe, although Dodd is the guy that I think we're all going to say they're going with. He could come up in the next week. I think based on what Snickers said tonight, they're going to talk about it. They said that the number he had to hit for the Braves to feel comfortable calling him up was 100. He hit 97, so, I mean, I hope that gives you an answer. I think it's going to be soon. Do I have a particular game picked out? No. I think they would like to do it at home. So if it's not tomorrow or anytime during this Phillies series, the earliest it would be at home would be Tuesday, June 6th against the Mets. That would be great. The ovation he would get, like somebody said earlier, would be great. And I think it's important to do it at home. They may not. They may need him on the road. But it would be important for me, I think, to see him come back at home because the ovation he's going to get would be untouched. I mean, that is something that would instill confidence. That is something that, I think would kind of help him get comfortable immediately, was to do it at home. Because, you would hope that if he went and played in New York or wherever, that they would give him an ovation and treat him well and all that, but there's nothing like doing it in front of the home crowd. And this home crowd's been waiting. You guys have been waiting to see Soroka. So I would hope they do it, at home. And the closest thing that they can do it is against the Mets on June 2nd. So, we'll see. But it's tough to say. I mean, they may need him before that. They may need him after that. I don't know. But being that they're down, Max Fried and Kyle Wright, he's going to get an opportunity. Make no mistake, because, Dylan Dodd is young. He's not perfect. Jared Schuster's young. He's not perfect. We'll see what happens. Jared Schuster's been good. Dylan Dodd could be good, but I think he is going to get an opportunity soon. Let me see. On the go with CeeLo says our bullpen is yikes. Let's see. Matthew says, hey Tyler, should the Braves make a cheap trade to get a starting pitcher from the Red Sox? They have too many, and Kluber and Pivetta suck, but the Braves need innings eaters. Sale could be available too. Okay, so what I tend to look for, and I think I've told y'all this, what I tend to look for in terms of like trade ideas, and I'll just kind of tell you how I go at this, because I did it not too long ago. Let me see if I can pull up that spreadsheet. And I basically do it by looking at who is a free agent in the following season. Right? That's kind of the way I do it, is by looking at free agents in 2024 for this year and starting there. That doesn't necessarily mean the deal is going to be made there. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily available. It's just they're more than likely they're more available in my mind, because if they're on a team that's not competing, then they're frankly more available. So yeah, I made the spreadsheet the other day, and I basically gave reasons for them not being available. And I came down with about 10 guys that could be available, but probably not. And this is at the time, so I haven't looked at it lately. For the Red Sox, let me take a look, because I genuinely don't know, but I'll be glad to take a look for you. Could they all be available? Sure, I genuinely don't. They're losing to the Angels, top of the 8th. That I do know. In the standings, they're in 4th place. They're 9 games back, so you could argue that they're kind of out of it. So that is a plus. Out of those guys you just mentioned to me, who is a free agent this year? Because that would be the guy that you target. So let me see Kluber. I don't think he is, but I'll take a look for you. And they may not all be. They may all not be free agents. Let's see. Signed through. Yeah, he's got a team option for 23 and 24. So Kluber could be an option, although the 6.26 ERA isn't necessarily the guy that I want to go after. And they're probably going to want a lot for him, and it's really not worth it. Could you do it? Sure. but I don't think I want to trade Vaughn Grissom for Kluber or Pavetta. He is signed through 2023, free agent 2025. I don't think I want to sign Pavetta or Kluber or trade for him for Vaughn Grissom. I want to get something that's actually going to benefit the team long term. And to be honest with you, I'm looking at what the team's doing right now. They're 5.5 games up on the Mets. You monitor that. You say, okay, if they get to a point where I feel uncomfortable, prior to the trade deadline or prior to Max Fried and Kyle Wright coming back, then you may make a move. But ultimately, I don't think that's the case. Because if you think about it, if I trade Vaughn Grissom, I have to get something back. Where are you going to get that back at? You're going to get it in the bullpen. It's not going to be a starter, in my opinion. I think your starters have to be solved within. That's why you've seen the Braves go to Dylan Dodd, Jared Schuster, even Bryce Elder, and in the future, more than likely, Michael Soroka. So you can say whatever you want, but for me, there's nothing in the trade block right now. It's too early. You have to let these teams really get out of it and still have a pitcher that's worth trading for, right? Like you got to find a guy that has been fairly good, but their team's kind of out of it, right? Like if you like, I'll read you a couple from the list I have to kind of give you some picture of what I'm looking at. You could go for somebody on the White Sox. You have Lucas Giolito there. He's got a 3.59 ERA. They've had an abysmal start to their year. You have Mike Clevenger, also on the White Sox, 4.84 ERA. I'm not saying it's a huge difference, but these are, and these ERAs are dated. They could very well be very different. But these are the kind of names I'm talking about. Alex Cobb on the Giants. Just keep an eye on it. Just somebody like that. Lance Lynn's another one. He's got a 7.51 ERA last I checked. I haven't looked at these guys' stats lately. These are all like 2 weeks old. So I'm just telling you, this is some research I did the other day in my free time. I'm not telling you this is going to happen. I'm just telling you I don't think they're going to go out and get somebody who has an ERA north of 6 and trade Vaughn Grissom for it, for example, or trade even Braden Shoemake. Because let's be honest, the Braves don't have a ton of trade pieces left. They don't have a ton of guys, ton of trade chips that they can put out there and say, hey, will you take this for so-and-so? They don't have a lot of those. So the ones that they have that are good, that have value, they have to use in the right moments. This isn't, remember when we traded, Shea Langoliers and Christian Pache, and, we got Olsen, but that hurt. That didn't feel good. It's not going to feel good if we lose Vaughn Grissom to a guy that is just here to kind of steady the waters and eat innings and not win ball games. It's not going to feel good. You want to get you want to get what you pay for. And if we're going to pay for Vaughn Grissom, I want to get somebody that's actually going to be some good to us. And again, I think you get that out of the pen more than anything. I think there's more arms in the pen that you can go after and go get. That's my take on it. So I hope you like it. Hope you agree with it. If you don't, it is what it is. Let's see. A lot of you guys active tonight. Really do appreciate it. Let's see. William Metcalf. Olsen seems to not be able to hit with runners in scoring position. I don't know if the stats back that up, but it feels that way when I'm watching games. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the eye test is a little different. I can try to find that out for you real quick. I haven't noticed personally, but then again, I don't really get to sit and watch games. I kind of watch the highlights more times than not, and keep track of the numbers and that kind of thing. But I can do what I can for you and see what we can find, just because I'm kind of used to doing this. Let's see what we can find. While I'm doing that, let me answer another question. Joe Reese, if the Braves make a trade, do you think they would look at Chapman at Kansas City? Is that where he's at these days? I haven't heard much out of him lately. Potentially. Kansas City's kind of out of it. I can look him up real quick. Hang on a second. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, why not? I mean, that's the kind of arm that, he's got a 2.89 ERA through 18 innings and 31 strikeouts. Why not go get Aroldis Chapman? I do think he's going to be somebody that a lot of other teams are going to be looking at, though. So as much as I'm saying, yeah, why not? Why not go after him? It's also, you have to realize a lot of teams are going to be going for him. So the asking price may be through the roof. Let me see if I can find something for you. Runners in scoring position. This is, he said 62 plate appearances. I don't know if this is for the year. I think it is. Yeah, regular season 2023. Scoring position, he has 8 hits out of 62 plate appearances, 48 at bats. He's batting 167. So, yeah, there's some truth to that. He's not hitting well with runners in scoring position. Although with bases loaded, it's even worse. He has a 0 batting average with bases loaded, but only through 6 at bats. But, yeah, I mean, there's something to that. I mean, it's a small sample size, truthfully. I mean, because with runners on first and third, he's hitting 333. With runners on first and second, he's hitting 375. I mean, it's not necessarily fair. So, you know, there is definitely some truth to it, but I don't necessarily say, oh, that's a huge issue. You know, I mean, could you move him around in the lineup? Sure. A lot of people have been saying that all year long. But I don't know that that's necessarily the way to go. Chapman and Joe Kelly with the White Sox would be enticing. That's from William Metcalf. Chapman is a legit candidate. Like, I haven't looked at bullpen arms at all. Like, Chapman's the first one I've even kind of looked at for potentially, because the Royals are out of it. The White Sox are kind of out of it last I checked. Joe Kelly, 2.51 ERA, free agent 2024. You see what I mean? We're rattling off names. It's a lot easier to find bullpen arms at the trade deadline than it is to find starting pitchers. Because think about it, guys. Remember 2020 when the Braves desperately needed starting pitching? Michael Soroka had gotten hurt. We desperately needed starting pitching. We couldn't really find it, and we got into the postseason with A.J. Minter starting against the Dodgers in the NLCS. You remember that? That was a rough time. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is when we went to the trade deadline, we needed starting pitching, and we got it, but it wasn't much. It was Tommy Milone and Robbie Erlin, right? So I just want you to remember that, because that's where the Braves are right now. You don't want to trade good prospects for Tommy Milone and Robbie Erlin. You want to trade them for somebody who's actually going to benefit the team come October, right? And, I mean, think about 2021. We traded for Richard Rodriguez, and a lot of people don't like when I bring this up, but that was a guy who steadied the bullpen and throughout the regular season, didn't make the World Series roster. I don't even think made the postseason roster, but he did steady the pen, and he was good for a time. And that's the kind of thing you need right now. You need a guy that's going to steady it. You don't have a starter option out there that I really think is going to be something worth getting. They may surprise me. Alex Anthopoulos has done far crazier than that, and I think he's definitely going to have a busy trade deadline. But I ultimately think that the way to go for the trade deadline is in the bullpen. That's just my humble opinion, but, you know, we'll see. And, guys, I know a lot of you guys are probably going to bring up trades tonight. I'm not going to do every single one. I just can't tonight. I mean, we're already pushing midnight, but I'm going to be here a while. I don't have any reason to go. I'm good. I'm here. If you want me to review a trade, I'm just going to kind of limit it to super chats for now, just because it takes so much time. I really want to get through these chats and get as many questions answered as I can. Let's see. Matthew, hey Tyler, can we somehow punish all the people who actually wanted the Braves to pay $37 million to release Ozuna? They would have been beyond stupid and beyond expensive. No, we can't punish all those people. For one, I'll be honest with you. I mean, say what you want, but a couple of months ago, I wouldn't have been surprised if Ozuna got released. I wouldn't, I mean, what was he doing? I mean, honestly, like, if we're being truthful right now, I was one of those that was like, look, I mean, he's not really benefiting the team in any way, and you just didn't hear anything good. And then all of a sudden, he pops off. I did say that I didn't think releasing him would be a great option because of what we're seeing now. If he turns into that MVP, if he turns into what he used to be, we're going to regret it. So there's some truth to that, but no, you can't punish him. I mean, you'd have to punish me for one. I mean, I was kind of that guy, saying that, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the Braves did it. Not that they should, because $37 million is really tough to walk away from, even if the Braves wanted to. And I'm sure the Braves thought about it. I mean, you can say what you want, but I'm sure Atlanta thought about it. This isn't some, the Braves knew more than us type of situation. It is a situation purely where Ozuna flipped a corner and turned into what he turned into. That's my take on it. Elijah says, I think the defense issue is mostly from the corners. I think Riley and Olsen are really good defenders, but they seem to make errors in the most costly situations, 2 outs to get out of an inning. I don't know the stat on that. I wish I could pull that up quickly. I can't. I will say this. I mean, I watched them both make outstanding plays tonight. I mean, Olsen off the Freddie line drive that got a double play, if I'm not mistaken. Riley made multiple plays in 1 inning. I think there could be some truth to it. I genuinely don't know. I wish I could have a better answer for you, but I just don't. Elijah Smith, I know you say bullpen for Grissom, but what if Chicago would trade Dylan Cease for him? I know Tim Anderson is probably going to be traded if they keep losing, and Grissom could help fill the shoes. Is Tim Anderson going to likely be traded? I mean, yeah, that's possible. Dylan, I mean, the White Sox are certainly a team that could, but also keep in mind you're going to have a lot of teams that want as many starting pitchers as they can get. And a lot of teams aren't as lucky as the Braves where they have all this depth. They're going to be willing to pay a little more because they don't have a Dylan Dodd. They don't have a Michael Soroka. They don't have a Jared Schuster, a Bryce Elder. They have their 4 plus whatever else is left. They want to get it bolstered before the postseason. So, could they go get it? Sure. But I don't think it's necessarily a given. Another super chat, this time from On The Go with CeeLo. Will we ever see D-Train, d'Arnaud, and Murph 2.0 Murphy in the same lineup? Thanks for the shout out again. No problem. Again, go check out that channel On The Go with CeeLo. He does watch-alongs of the games and Not a Bad Braves channel himself. Potentially. The way, I'll be honest with you, I thought we would have seen that by now. If we haven't already, I'm kind of surprised. Now that you're bringing it up, I don't know if we have or not. The way that would have to go would be, obviously I'm literally writing out a lineup right now. So Acuna's leading off, Olsen in the 2-hole. I know you disagree with that, but just hear me out. Olsen in the 2-hole, Riley in the 3-hole. I'll put Murphy in the 4-hole there, d'Arnaud in the 5-hole. I'm literally just going. You'd have to give Ozuna the day off because d'Arnaud or Murphy would have to be the DH. I'd put Harris in the 9-hole. That would be your center. Okay, so 6, 7, 8. You got Albies there. Sorry, guys. I'm working this as fast as I can. Left field, I'll go Rosario. What am I missing here? Oh, and then Arcia. Yeah, I mean, that would be the way you'd have to do it. So you'd have to put d'Arnaud at DH, you'd have to put Murphy at catcher, and then from there, Rosario in left field. That would be the only way you could really see it. I'm again surprised we haven't already seen it because with Ozuna's early struggles, I would have thought they would have done that by now. But, we'll see. I mean, they're going to have to give, at-bats to d'Arnaud some kind of way. So we'll see. Elijah says, would you prefer Cease or a top-tier bullpen arm like a David Bednar? Is Bednar still a top bullpen arm? I know that might be a dumb question, but I'm genuinely curious because I would have killed for David Bednar a few years ago. I actually was on it. Let's go get David Bednar. The problem with David Bednar is the Pirates are freaking idiots. And I'll say that proudly. They don't make trades. They don't trade. And it's dumb because they have David Bednar, who is outstanding reliever, right? 150 ERA, all that. And before this year, I know they're competing right now, but before this year, they were irrelevant. And it was hey, you could get prospects that grow around Brian Reynolds. That's the way I felt about it. Of course, the Pirates knew a little bit more than me. If I'm not mistaken, they're actually leading their division. I need to check on that. Been a while since I've actually looked at the NL Central standings. Okay, they're second, so they're 2 games back. So that's the thing. Would I like a David Bednar? I would love a David Bednar, but they're 2 games back from the division lead. So it's just not necessarily a given that he's even on the table, even though he is a premier bullpen arm. That's the kind of thing you have to think about. It's not always would the player come here, that kind of, it's also is the team competing? Because if they're competing, they're going to compete. They're not going to trade away their best pieces. So in that sense, I think Cease would be the obvious there. would I prefer one or the other? I'll take a David Bednar right now. I think we have enough in starting pitching to get by until Wright and Fried get back. I would take a bullpen arm. If that's your question, if your question is bullpen arm or starter, I'd go bullpen arm, elite bullpen arm over a mid-level starter. I would take that. And a lot of people disagree with that. Like, hey, we got to cover these innings. Yeah, but we got to cover these innings up until a certain point. Once you get Fried and Wright back, you're home free, right? In theory. Let's see. Tyler, I think it's this is Matthew Brittingham. Tyler, I think it's very possible that the Joe Jimenez trade will be the worst trade AA has ever made for us. Have you seen what Justin Henry Malloy is doing in AAA? Jimenez is a free agent after this year. It may be, but Anthopoulos also knew that the bullpen was going to be a question. He knew he had to bolster it some kind of way. Obviously has not been Joe Jimenez's best year. I think we can state that pretty obviously. Let me pull up his baseball reference. So give me just a second. 4.41 ERA, not great. Through 16 innings, 22 strikeouts, not great. But, he could also have a second half and make us all like, oh, okay, like I see why this happened. So I'm not really there yet. I think you have to give it time. And would it be the worst trade? It's tough to say. I mean, you could argue that the Tommy Malone trades I mentioned earlier were bad. I mean, you could argue that, didn't we trade Bryce Wilson for Richard Rodriguez? Look at what Bryce Wilson's doing as a reliever. I always thought he should be a reliever. So that's worth considering. One Ron says Soroka is still a few starts from being called up, and I completely understand being cautious with a guy like Soroka. Absolutely. Josh Gillum says, I didn't like the Joe Jimenez trade or the Murphy trade, to be honest. Well, I like the Murphy trade now. I wasn't a big fan of it at the time because I was really big on Contreras, and I hated to see him go. He's batting 300 with the Brewers. I hear you. Look, I was all for Contreras staying and being the long-term catcher, and him and d'Arnaud I thought were a good team. He had improved a lot behind the plate. The Braves went for Murphy, and Murphy had a great start to the year. He's an elite guy. He's here for a long time. It is what it is. It's not my favorite trade that we've made. I like that more than I like Joe Jimenez, and at the time it didn't feel like we were losing much, but you mentioned, not you, but Matthew mentioned earlier that Justin Henry Malloy is doing great things in AAA. That's the kind of thing you risk. They could turn out to be nothing. But like Elijah says, Murphy's been one of the best catchers in baseball this year, so I actually like that trade. The Joe Jimenez trade obviously hasn't turned out what we wanted it to be, and to be honest with you, it turned out to be exactly what I kind of expected. And I said it, I believe, when they made the trade, that I didn't think it was great because, this is kind of what he's been the past few years. He had a 5.96 ERA in 2021. That's through 45 innings. He had a 3.49 ERA last year. That's through 56. He has a 4.41, so middle of the road really for the past 2 years compared to the last 2 years. He's never really had elite stuff. He's been okay. He could eat some innings, but he's never been like just a premier bullpen arm. I'm trying to look at like standard splits so I can see something real quick. So maybe I can make a point for you to try and give you something. Let me check his stats on Baseball Savant. Hang on just a second. While I'm doing that, let's see. While I'm doing that, let's see. Scooter Puff, I haven't answered your question. Extremely relieved to see Dodd announced for Thursday instead of yet another bullpen game disaster. Even if he's had some shaky starts, it's still better than waving that white flag again. Yeah, when you have a bullpen game, it's almost demeaning. It's almost like, oh, well, we're giving this one up. And that doesn't say much about our bullpen, when I'm saying that, because it sounds like I'm saying stuff bad about the bullpen when in reality, I'm just saying, like, you're asking too many guys to be on their best day, and it's not what they're accustomed to. It's just not what you want to see. All right, let me see. Splits. So Joe Jimenez, I'm hoping to see. Let's see, 2023. Let's see. So in 2022, not what I was looking for. Anyway, I tried to make a point, couldn't do it. Yeah, Joe Jimenez wasn't my favorite trade either. That's all I got to say on that. Blair McBride says Bryce Elder has been amazing. Nobody thought he'd have an ERA of barely 2 after 10 starts. Not I. I can't say I did. He proved me absolutely wrong. I'll completely agree with you on that. Let's see. Elijah Smith, after his first bad start of his career, Enoa threw away such a promising future. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. He punched a bench, and that ended it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you hated to see it. I truly hated to see that. Joe Reese, do you think they extend Soroka in the offseason since he's healthy and pitching good and will be coming back to Atlanta soon since there's a good chance Morton retires at the end of the season? Not a bad question, and I'll be honest with you, I hate to speak for him, but I do think Morton would retire. It wouldn't. Well, I shouldn't say that. It wouldn't surprise me if Morton retired. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Soroka is signed through 2025. He's arbitration eligible. Let's first of all see how he does. You know what I mean? Like it's a little too early to get into the idea of could Soroka potentially get a long-term deal. I think you look more towards Bryce Elder right now. And, I'd look towards Ozzie. A lot of people kind of overlook Ozzie's not getting paid like he should be. I think he's making $5 million a year for 7 years. I would look at Ozzie. You keep Ozzie around, you got a better chance of keeping Acuna around. That's who I look at. Everybody else I think is pretty much good. Nobody in the pen that I'm like, oh, we got to lock up now. I mean, Raisel Iglesias is locked up for a while. The other big guy, honestly, is not Soroka. It's Fried, because he's a free agent the same year, and he's got a reason to think that he's leaving. So, we'll see. We're almost wrapped up here, guys. So I'm going to answer this one last question, and then if you have a super chat, get it in. Otherwise, we're going to wrap this one up. Mark Narmore, trade with D-backs for Mark Melanson. You shouldn't have let him go. 38 years old is downside. Well, let's take a look, shall we? Mark Melanson, good old former Brave Mark Melanson. If you don't remember, Mark Melanson went to the Padres and had some things to say that were kind of Dansby Swanson-like once he left Atlanta. They were, I'm here to win. It was right after 2019, I believe. And he, he's like, I'm here to win. Almost referring to like the Braves weren't there to win. It was very odd. Anyway, he's got a 2.94 ERA, not terrible. Four-time All-Star. We know who he is. We've seen him in the Braves uniform before. So, I'm not necessarily against Mark Melanson. If they got him, great. If not, I'm not going to be upset. Could be an option. We'll see. Free agent 2024. It certainly could happen. The Diamondbacks are falling apart, in a lot of ways. I know Bumgarner didn't exactly work out for them in any way, shape, or form, which to no one's surprise, honestly. But I don't know that they're necessarily going to be looking to get rid of Mark Melanson at the deadline. Right now, the Diamondbacks, let me see, Diamondbacks are second in the division. So that's the other thing they'll be working against them. They're not going to be looking to get rid of bullpen help by any stretch of the imagination. Preston Young, you're my last question tonight. Do you think Ozzie needs to stop switch hitting? He's been so good righty and mediocre lefty. I've talked about this before multiple times because a lot of people bring this up. I've talked about it in support of him doing it. I've talked about it and not being in support of it because it is a very valuable skill. Thank you for the super chat, Preston. It's a very valuable skill to switch hit when you can do it effectively. But when you hit so well from the right side, you begin to question should you be doing it. The reason I say that, Cedric Mullins, I think a few years ago stopped switch hitting, and that's kind of what set him off. That's what made him a constant name that was brought up and, maybe not MVP caliber, talent, but a consistent bat. That's what made him that. I agree with you. He's been kind of mediocre lefty. I don't deny that, and I kind of agree. I honestly, in a lot of ways, agree with you. But I don't necessarily think it's going to stop because, again, when you have that skill, you don't want to lose it, especially a skill that you've worked on so long. But I would also say to that point, last year in the postseason, he did not switch hit. I don't believe there were multiple. I think it was last year. It was a switch. It was a postseason in the past couple of years. I think it was last year. He did not switch hit. I don't know if it's because he just didn't feel comfortable with it. I don't know what it was. If the numbers show that he did better on that pitcher on the right side, I don't know what it was. But I'll tell you this: his right side numbers versus his left side numbers do speak volumes. And I'm actually about to pull up Baseball Savant so I can actually go into depth about this, Preston. I'm only doing this because you super chatted, so thank you for that. That is Preston's first super chat, if I'm not mistaken, so thank you for that. Let's see what Baseball Savant says about Ozzie Albies. Yeah, he hurt his wrist left-handed, but he still did not play in the postseason, I don't believe, switch hitting. All right, let's see. So versus left, he has 60 plate appearances this year, 441 average. That's when he's, of course, hitting right-handed. So 441 average versus a 172 average on the other side. And the problem that Ozzie's having is he's facing a lot of right-handed pitching. He really is. He's facing a ton of right-handed pitching, so he's not hitting right-handed a lot. But he's obviously much better when he is because he has a 441 average on the right side. Now, granted, it's smaller sample size. He's got 200 plate appearances this year. Through 60 of them, he's got a 441 average. I mean, the numbers in theory say that he would be doing a lot better the other way around. But he's hitting 254 on the year. So it's tough to say. But 441 versus 172 in any regard is pretty telling. He does have 5 homers from both sides, though, so that is something to keep in mind. But he also has far more at-bats on the wrong side. So he's got to face some more right-handed pitching, or some more left-handed pitching, rather. He's got to face more at-bat from the right side. Maybe batting from the right side, just in general, would be something good for him. But also consider that would be an adjustment period in itself. So it's kind of tough to say. The only person that really knows is Ozzie Albies, what he should and shouldn't do. So we'll see what he does. I think it could make him better. And make no mistake, I'm an Ozzie Albies fan. So I would personally kind of like to see it. But we'll see it. Yeah, the OPS. Thank you. The OPS is absurd. So from the left side, he has a 1,281, 1.281 OPS. From the right side, or versus righties, he's got a 556. So from the right side, he's got a 1.281 OPS. From the left side, a 556 OPS. So do I think he should stop switch hitting? According to the numbers, I would say yes. According to the eye test, I would still probably also say yes. But again, I'm not Ozzie Albies. I don't know what's best for him in the box. I don't know what would be the best. Is he hurting us switch hitting? It's tough to say. I mean, if the Braves didn't want him to do it, he probably wouldn't do it. But it's really, at the end of the day, it's up to him. So that's all I got for you, Preston. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you, CeeLo. Thank you, Trip. Thank you, Z Corp. Thank you, One Ron. Thank you, everybody that super chatted tonight. That really helps the channel out. Thank you to everybody who liked the video. That really helps us get this out there. Thank you for everybody who subscribed tonight. If you haven't already, please do subscribe so that you know when we go live next time. And of course, we will see you next time right here at On Deck. So again, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on at On Deck, and of course with your Atlanta Braves. Also, make sure to follow me on social media. You can do that with that @ right there. That's on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, go shop On Deck. We have t-shirts, hats, everything you need. Go check that out. And of course, check out our friends at FOCO as well. Their link is down below. For now, we'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.